Try this. Without looking, what's your best friend's phone number? Not the contact name, the actual number. 30 years ago, almost everyone could recite 10 digits from memory without thinking. Today, most people can't recite their own number. That's not a joke. It's been measured. And it's a small symptom of something much bigger. For most of the 20th century, every generation scored higher on intelligence tests than the one before it. Researchers called it the Flynn effect, and it held for almost 100 years across dozens of countries. Then, starting in the mid-1990s, in Norway, Denmark, France, the UK, and the US, some of the most educated societies on Earth, the line stopped climbing. And then it bent downward. The first explanation that spread was the most comfortable one, at least for whoever was saying it. Smarter people have fewer children, less educated people have more, and over generations the average drifts down. It sounds like arithmetic, which made it feel like science. In 2018, Norwegian researchers tested that theory directly using military conscription data going back to 1962, not by comparing different families, but by comparing brothers from the same household. Same parents, same house, same genes. The younger brother, born just a few years later, scored measurably lower than his older brother. That result alone kills the genetic explanation. You can't inherit less intelligence than your own brother from the same parents. Whatever caused the drop happened in the years between them in the environment, not the bloodline. So something changed in the shared world. But here's the detail almost no one puts on screen. The decline isn't even. Researchers testing 4 separate cognitive domains found 3 of them falling: verbal reasoning, working memory, processing speed, and 1 of them rising. Spatial reasoning, the ability to mentally rotate and manipulate objects in 3 dimensions, has been going up this entire time. If everyone were simply getting dumber, every line on the graph would point the same direction. It doesn't. That asymmetry is the actual mystery, and almost nobody stops to ask why. There are 2 forces that explain most of what's falling. The first is what researchers call cognitive offloading. In 2011, a study published in Science gave people trivia facts to type into a computer. Half were told the file would be saved, half were told it would be erased. The group who believed the information was saved remembered dramatically less of it, not because they weren't paying attention, but because the brain quietly deprioritizes anything it expects to find again later. We have spent the last 20 years handing our memory to search engines, GPS, and contact lists, and our brains have responded exactly the way you'd expect a very efficient system to respond, by not bothering to store what it can retrieve for free. The second force works alongside it. Education systems across multiple developed countries shifted away from memorization-heavy instruction between the 1980s and 2000s, treating memorized knowledge as outdated now that information is a search away. But memorization isn't just storage, it's raw material. Working memory, the mental workspace where reasoning actually happens, performs better the more it already has to work with. A mind with less to draw on has to do more of its thinking in real time, with fewer shortcuts available, which is exactly the kind of task that shows up as slower, weaker reasoning on a test. Both of these point at the same target, not attention, not intelligence itself, but memory specifically. And that's what makes the spatial reasoning increase make sense instead of being a strange exception. Spatial reasoning isn't a memory-dependent skill in the same way it's closer to pattern recognition, the kind of fast visual processing that video games, interfaces, and screen navigation train constantly. We didn't get dumber across the board. We got better at exactly the kind of thinking that doesn't require holding information in your head, and worse, at exactly the kind that does. Go back to the start of this video. You couldn't recall a phone number. That's not a random example, it's the whole mechanism in miniature. The skill didn't disappear because your brain broke. It disappeared because you stopped needing it, and your brain, quite reasonably, stopped investing in it. Here's the part that actually matters. The Norwegian brothers prove this is environmental, and environmental means reversible. Nothing about this is fixed the way a genetic trait is fixed. The generations that lived through the original Flynn effect didn't do anything mystical. They got better nutrition, more schooling, and more cognitively demanding daily life. And their scores rose to meet it. There's no reason the same wouldn't work in reverse. The specific lever the research points to isn't less screen time in general, it's memory load, deliberately holding information instead of immediately offloading it. Reading something long enough to have to remember the beginning by the time you reach the end. The generation that grows up doing more of that, not less of everything digital, is the one whose line goes back up. You are watching this at the exact moment researchers can finally show you the decline in real time, on a graph, with a plausible cause and a working brother-pair natural experiment behind it. Most generations never got to see the mechanism. You just did. The only open question left is which side of the graph you end up on.